Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? This meeting is being recorded. We're going to share it on YouTube as well for any of the faith communities who couldn't make it this evening. But we're thrilled you're all here and look forward to our conversation. We're going to dive right in. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephen Slaybaugh. I serve along with Sid as a co-director of Interfaith Action. And this evening, we're going to talk about redistricting and what it means for our faith communities. As you may know, legislative maps have been substantially redrawn for upcoming elections. And the maps are different for Michigan seats in the U.S. House of Representatives, the Michigan Senate, and the Michigan House of Representatives. I don't know if I said Michigan twice there. One is the U.S. House of Representatives and the other is Michigan. And tonight, Gene Schoon is, and did I pronounce that right, Gene, last name?
You did, you did.
Good. Gene Schoon is here to lead us in this conversation. Gene's a lawyer with over 40 years of experience, currently serving as a member of the Shiver Center on Poverty Law, Board of Directors, and he also participates in other organizations focused on racial and economic justice. So, Gene, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you everyone for being here. In my role with Interfaith Action Southwest Michigan, I'm also the coordinator of policy and justice. And this area of redistricting falls under my sort of ambit of responsibility. I want to start off by just saying to anyone who's watching this, from time to time, I may express some opinions in the course of this presentation. Please bear in mind, those are my personal opinions. They don't necessarily represent those of Interfaith Action Southwest Michigan or any of the constituent or organizations who are part of it. So I'm gonna, and forgive me, I'm not terrific at screen sharing, but and this sort of thing, but I want to start this off with my, and again, forgive my somewhat amateurish slides. So as Stephen said, there are a number of districts that have changed within the state as a result of the every 10 years, the decennial redistricting that's mandated here. In Michigan, this was our first foray with the Independent Commission following the adoption of that program in the recent past. So things have shaken up some. House of Representatives, formerly, most of us, I think, were in the 6th district, also known as Fred Upton's district, for good reason. He was in Congress for 35 years, and he started there when he was just 35, and he'll end his term when he's 70. And he has been an interesting politician to follow. Starting off, as some of you may remember, he was actually sort of a protege, or at least an aide to Newt Gingrich, and he followed through to his most recent claims to fame or infamy as one of the few Republican representatives who voted to impeach Donald Trump. Anyway, the 6th district is now being divided up into the 4th district, which is sort of the northern part of the old 6th and part of the district above that. And then the 5th district, which is where I am in Bridgman, and we'll get into the maps later. But I'll show how that is more, I refer to it as more of the South and East district. The Michigan Senate, what had been the 21st and 26th districts, where Lasada and Nesbitt were the incumbent senators, is now the 17th and the 20th. Again, sort of a north-south type of division. And then the Michigan House, formerly the 78th and 79th districts, with Pauline Wenzel and Brad Packett, are now the 37th and the 38th. And then I'll probably touch on the 39th as well, since they all kind of go together. Just a refresher where we are. The final versions, I think everybody's known what the maps have looked like for some weeks. The final versions were actually released on May 5, so just a few days ago. There's a very good website from the MICRC that does this terrific interactive thing where you can plug in your address, you can plug in your zip code, you can plug in all sorts of data and find out where you are, and a lot of really useful information. So that's something I encourage everyone who has questions to look at. The districts, now I took this from the law that established the Independent Commission. The districts are to be of equal population, contiguous, reflect the state's diverse population, not give advantage to any one political party, not favor incumbents, and reflect local boundaries and be reasonably compact. That's a pretty big mouthful. One thing that has been pointed out, I think, quite a bit in discussion of the new districts is it doesn't mandate keeping counties intact. And in fact, as we know, if you've looked at the maps at all, our counties have been cut up into different districts now, quite unlike it was in the 6th with the old system under Fred Upton. It does also require consideration of communities of interest, and their communities of interest are to be at the heart of the process. This is somewhat unique to Michigan. Other states I know have recognized communities of interest, but that is something that's very important to this process. It's not always clear from the maps how those communities of interest may have been considered, but they can take into account things like cultural, historical, and economic interests. So let's talk about the House, the US House. Michigan, because of its relative population size, has lost the district, so we're now at 13 representatives in the US House, or will be after the next election. The 6th district, as I mentioned before, was Fred Upton's, and now it's 4th and 5th. There'll be a significant shift, as you can see, in representation and the style of representation. I think Fred Upton in recent years came to be known as a moderate, a problem solver. In addition, he was a member of the Tuesday Group, the Republican Main Street partisanship. He voted to impeach Trump. He voted for gun background checks. He voted for and promoted a red flag law for gun safety. But we should remember, before we get too misty-eyed about Fred and his soon departure, he also voted against the Affordable Care Act. He voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. As late as 2010, he doubted that carbon dioxide caused climate change or that human activity contributed to it. He voted for a ban on same-sex marriage in 2006. But on that topic, Fred seems to have gone through somewhat of a conversion process and then voted for a number of protections for the LGBTQ community. Anyway, Fred Upton, I think, was good for the district. I think he did a lot for us. He brought in money, he brought in projects, and represented a voice of moderation on the House. I think I at least am going to miss him, especially when you see the alternatives. So here's the map. This is where we were, all the way from basically New Buffalo in the south to Saugatuck, and really up to Lake Macatawa in the north, over to New Buffalo, or over to Kalamazoo, and then down to the Indiana border. According to Politico, this was supposedly a competitive district, but as we all know, Upton won it consistently, often in double digits. So we'll see what we have now. And I apologize, this is actually from the official website, but if you can see my cursor, the sort of magenta color, hope I have my colors right, my magenta color here is the 4th district, and that represents the sort of northern area, much of which was in the 6th, going over to Kalamazoo over here, and as far as Battle Creek and Marshall. And then down in the corner here, you go down to basically, this is the, sorry, wrong corner. This is St. Joe and Benton Harbor down here. So St. Joe and Benton Harbor represent the southern and westernmost area. And then up here, Bobby, you may know better than me, but I think it goes up to Holland because we have several candidates from Holland running. So this is a pretty big shift in how the district is configured, but nowhere near what happened to the southern half where I live, because here we go all the way from this is Stevensville here, all the way to Toledo, and from New Buffalo all the way to Toledo. We pick up a couple of counties here in the sort of northern tier, but it's a much different looking map than what we had if you go back to this. And I'm sorry I don't have directly comparable, but you can see how much different these are.
This guy.
So anyway, what does that mean for us? I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the candidates for Congress than I will in the other districts, because first of all, I know a little bit more about them and they're just a little more interesting. So for the 4th district, the northern part of our area, you've got Bill Huizenga from Holland or Zeeland, I believe actually. He's currently the incumbent in the 2nd district and has been there since 2011. He is conservative, to say the least. He's against he was against the vaccine mandates, against mandates related to masks. He's against climate change legislation. He signed on to the brief along with 120 some other representatives challenging the 2020 election in the US Supreme Court. And generally, I think can be counted on to take the conservative line in the House of, and I shouldn't say conservatives, more of the Trump right-wing line. Against him is, in the general election, neither one here has a primary challenger, but Joseph Alfonso, also from Holland. Alfonso is an ex-Marine, interesting character. I don't think he's done very much in politics before. He was born in New York to immigrant parents. His mother, I believe, was Puerto Rican and his father was from the Dominican. He is a leader in an organization called the Navigators, which is a gender inclusive scouting organization. When you look at his campaign materials and some of his writings, I think you'd characterize him as a sort of middle of the road, moderate Democrat, and seems like a very solid candidate. Again, my opinion on all this. The 5th district is a lot more interesting, I'm sorry to say. The Republicans, our incumbent is Tim Walberg. He's from Tipton, which is kind of about halfway to Toledo, maybe a little bit further. This is his 2nd stint in Congress. He was previously there for a couple of years. Walberg is an interesting guy. He was trained, I forgot what his first career was, but then he went to the Moody Bible Institute. He got a degree from Taylor University and then a graduate degree from Wheaton College. So, you know, he's got some academics. He's a pastor. He leads something called the Union Gospel Church. He's a birther as to Obama. He bought into that whole controversy as to Obama's legitimacy, along with Donald Trump. He's a climate change denier. He is on record as saying that if climate change were a problem, that his God would be powerful enough to take care of it and that we need not worry. He was another election challenger, was in the lawsuit, and brought by 100 and some representatives. So, and I think just generally on social issues tends to be quite conservative. Elizabeth First is actually sort of moderate. I don't know a lot about her. She came out against the January 6th insurrection. She characterized Donald Trump as a demagogue. If you look at her website, she has high praise for Blair, who was actually the founder of the Republican Party, and goes on at some length about her admiration for the foundations of the Republican Party. And those of us who read Heather Cox Richardson know that that she's been talking a lot about the foundations as an anti-slavery party. She praises the civil rights amendments. She's a Catholic, and I can't tell from her website or other materials where she stands on other issues. But compared to Wahlberg and O'Donnell, who I'll go to next, she's kind of the moderate. Now we come to Sherry O'Donnell. I don't know about where you live, but I see more Sherry O'Donnell signs than any other congressional candidate signs. She is an osteopath with a practice in Stevensville. She says she's running because she's worried about rights being taken away from us, from the people. She's pro-life. She's anti-critical race theory. She calls the COVID pandemic a plandemic, and that says that the pandemic was planned. She says that healthcare workers are killing patients with the protocols that they follow. She refers to it as a globalist genocide. She calls Fred Upton a communist. And if for no other reason, so that you have just some idea of who this person is, I'd urge you to just go on her campaign website and look at why she's running. I mean, if she is elected, she will be our own Marjorie Taylor Greene. Very, very extreme positions. I was quite surprised when I did my research on her. So that's our lineup. Cheery thoughts, right? On the Democratic side, Bart Goldberg is somewhat moderate. He's a University of Chicago law graduate from 1985. He is kind of a Chicagoan. I didn't notice any particular political experience in his background, and I haven't seen very much of him on the campaign trail.
Rob?
Somebody was asking a question. Okay. Anyway, big picture on Congress. This is kind of how Politico looks at the map. Sorry, these are very small, but kind of mapping out. The purple is considered to be a competitive district. The current map is on the right-hand side there, as you can see. The fourth would be considered competitive between Republican and Democrat. The fifth is considered to be solidly red, and they divide it by strong Trump versus strong Biden, and that's how they do their analysis. Just looking at county and voting tracts, you can see that the real blue area in Michigan is here in the Detroit area. I've seen lots of different ways to slice and dice this. I think it's basically we're going to be about a 50-50 in our congressional delegation, probably 6 Democrat and 7 Republicans, depending on how the Democrats fare in the midterms. Now let's turn to the state Senate. These are the new districts that we've got. As you can see, I didn't try to create to put up an old district map, but you see the 20th taking up the north, and then for our purposes in Interfaith Action, the 17th, which takes in a good part of the congressional 5th, the western half of the congressional 5th, and then goes up even to a little part of Kent County. So interesting divisions. It's caused a little bit of disruption in the current lineup. As things stand right now, and all these candidates that I'm putting up, these are the people who made the April 19 cutoff for filing for the election. In the 20th, that's again the northern part, mostly Van Buren County and Allegan, up into Kent. Eric Nesbitt from Lawton is the current incumbent. He would have been facing off against Kim Lasada from the 17th district, now in the 17th district, but Kim Lasada moved because I think to the extent politics were motivating for her, she did not want to face off against a fellow incumbent. Nesbitt is being challenged in the primary by Caleb Hudson from Grand Rapids. Frankly, I don't know anything about Caleb Hudson. Austin Kreutz from Allegan is another pastor. He's got a very interesting, informative website. He does call Governor Whitmer a narcissist who is drunk with power. He is an election denier. He thinks that the election was stolen and is very concerned and is running because he believes that we are headed toward a socialist state. Eric Nesbitt, as you know, is quite conservative himself. I didn't try to summarize everything that he stands for at this point. On the Democratic side, and maybe somebody on this presentation knows Kim Jorgensen Gain. She's from Benton Harbor. I do not, and frankly, her campaign materials are virtually non-existent. So there's not much I can say about her other than that she's running as the Democratic candidate. And I'm sure we'll hear more as the election approaches. She has no primary challenger. In the 17th district, which is south, again, everybody can see the boundaries. We have Kim Lasada, who's in Niles. She's been incumbent in the 21st district since 2019. Kim is also fairly conservative. She's become increasingly harsh in her criticism of Whitmer and increasingly strong in her support of Second Amendment rights and other areas. But I've noticed that since it became clear she was going to have a primary challenger, Jonathan Lindsay, who's to the right of her, I think, she has become increasingly active. I had been on her mailing list for some time and never got anything, and now I'm getting email updates from her on a weekly basis. Her latest complaint against Governor Whitmer is that Whitmer vetoed a bill that she had sponsored that had something to do with election, I believe it was election identification or another topic. Anyway, Kim Lasada is going to follow the party line based on what she has done before. I've spoken with her a few times on some issues. She appeared to be somewhat open-minded on some things, but I've got no commitments from her or her staff. Jonathan Lindsay is the Trump-endorsed candidate. His slogan is "Michigan needs a warrior." I think he's ex-military as well, and has done a number of things on his campaign website to demonstrate that his credentials merit his election. And on the Democratic side, Scott Rex Starr from Coldwater. Again, he's a little bit of a mystery to me. I don't know him, and there wasn't much material available to shed light on what his positions might be. So that's kind of where we are with the Michigan State lineup under the new districts. Let's turn to the House. What you've got here is a map of the old districts. This one here, kind of along the lake and up and over into Van Buren County. This was Pauline Wenzel's district. And then this one from New Buffalo and over Brad Packett, the other Republican rep, is the current occupant of that seat. So I'm just going to focus mostly on these two districts. So under the new map, we've got a very interesting district that goes all the way from New Buffalo up to up into Allegan County, north of Saugatuck, I believe. Unfortunately, I don't have city maps on this, or city names on this map, but it goes quite far north and clearly covers all the shoreline communities from south to north in this area. Then District 39, Van Buren picks up the rest of Van Buren County, which Pauline Wenzel had been representing, and then the rest of Berrien County is in the 37th, and then I'm not really going to talk about the 36th, but it covers Cass and St. Joe County. So an interesting change in the lineup, and that gives us a whole field of candidates. I'm just going to touch on who these people are. In the 38th district, that's our Lakeshore district, we've got 3 Republicans competing for the seat: George Lucas, Troy Rawling, and Kevin Whiteford. I don't know anything particularly notable about them. On the Democratic side, we have Joey Andrews and Annie Brown. Some of us on this call know Annie, I think, from her activities in the area. She's from South Haven and participates in a number of things, including our all-packed meetings. In the 37th district, which is the western part of Berrien County, not picked up in the 38th, that's where Brad Packett is. It's currently the 78th, and J.D. Hoey from Three Oaks is running against him. And on the Democratic side, Naomi Ludman. I should say the 38th district, from what you read about competitiveness, is probably the most competitive and most likely to go Democratic compared to the other districts. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the 39th district, which picks up mostly Van Buren County and west, except for that little corner where South Haven is, which is part of the 38th. So that's where Pauline Wenzel is. She's running against Matthew Nilsson, and then on the Democratic side, Jared Polanowski. So that's the rundown on the new district maps. I realize I kind of breezed through that. I wonder if anyone wanted, I had a few other things to say. But before I launch into a new topic, I thought I'd give people a chance to either ask questions or make comments or
I
corrections.
could just add in that Annie Brown was our local rep from our U.S. Senator's office, is a member of St. Basil's Catholic Church in South Haven, and has attended many interfaith action events over the years. So she's been very much engaged with interfaith action. Naomi Ludman, who is running from Dowagiac, is our Cass County policy mentor. And so we've had ongoing relationships with Naomi Ludman to guide us as to what are some of the policy issues in Cass County that she would encourage us to address. And then the woman from Benton Harbor, Gunderson, am I remembering her name?
See if I can get us back up there.
Kim Jorgensen
Yeah.
has been somewhat active with ALPACT, and I think defines herself as a community activist. So those are the individuals that have been more intimately involved with interfaith action over the years.
As a reminder, the primary is on August 2. So a few months down the road, and Michigan is an open primary state. So if you are so inclined, you can vote in either parties, but you can only vote in one. And that's something to keep in mind if you want to let your voice be heard in whatever it is that you might not otherwise do.
Gene, what's the impact of kind of Kalamazoo kind of now being very critical in our kind of political arena, and Battle Creek also?
Yeah, Battle Creek and Kalamazoo. Let's see if I can pull them up. See, on the Senate side, they're kind of non-participants. On the U.S. House side, here, if you go to the 4th District, they put quite a bit of weight into the 4th District because, you know, before the old 6th didn't go that far to the east, and so you're pulling in a few more population centers. You know, you've got somewhat more blue-leaning areas here, and then of course South Haven and up north. So I don't know that I've seen an analysis. As I said, it's considered to be a competitive district to the extent people have done the nose counting from, you know, who voted for Trump and who voted for Biden. Definitely not a solid blue or a solid red, but somewhere in the middle. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Gene, Interfaith Action at its founding mirrored the U.S. House 6th Congressional District, except for Kalamazoo, claiming that we really represented 90% of the geographic area of the 6th Congressional District, and we focused on rural, small towns, small municipalities that comprised the majority of the 6th District. With the redistricting. We cannot use that as part of our introduction. Any off-the-cuff guidance as to where our geographic focus should continue to be in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Sid, you and I have visited a little bit about that before. It's really hard to say, because at least politically, we don't, I'm just going to pull up the map again. If we think of where we were before, it was basically, all around this part.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think of political districts, it doesn't really work for the 17th and the 20th for us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're covering such a wide swath going in any direction, and the state house is maybe the closest model for us, where we sort of focus our attention on these three districts, 37, right, 38, and 39. I don't mean to cut out Allegan. Cass has not, we pick up, and I forgot what the border is, but I think we pick up, what is it, Three Rivers and some of the other populous areas on this side of the, on the west side of the county. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that, either Sid or Stephen or anything else?
Yeah, I can say that the majority of our engaged congregations are from Van Buren, Berrien, and Allegan. That Cass and St. Joseph, we have been challenged in identifying more than, I would say, 2 congregations in each of those counties. And in meeting with kind of community leaders to guide us as to where there are moderate faith communities, they are at a loss to direct us, which is not to say we shouldn't be that lone solitary voice, but we've not been able to find a lot of collegiality in Cass or St. Joseph. Now, it does raise the question, we have avoided much work in Kalamazoo just because of the size of the city and the fact that it has a kind of urban vitality and a very strong, moderate Christian and Jewish communities, and a somewhat large Islamic association. We have just initiated conversations with a interfaith community-based organizing initiative that is headquartered at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Kalamazoo, just so that we can maintain lines of communication. I don't think we're prepared to say, we should include Kalamazoo as part of our area.
Okay.
But other folks chime in, questions, comments.
If not, or you can hold them later. I had just a couple things I wanted to go a little bit beyond my topic here. You'll forgive me, but I've got the I've got the floor, so I'm going to take it. I feel very strongly that one of the things we all should be involved in is the effort to get a ballot initiative for Promote the Vote. So this is a quick word about the Promote the Vote ballot initiative. We have until July 11 to get the signatures that are necessary to put it on the ballot. This would provide a constitutional protection, if passed, a constitutional protection for some of the very important voting rights that many of us I know feel strongly about, and a counter to the attempts to limit voting opportunities. So if those of you who are involved in this know, it's sometimes confusing because there is also an active attempt to get another ballot initiative, which will never hit the ballot, but which will be, if they get the right number of signatures, will go to the Michigan legislature and be passed by the Republican legislature, and will bypass the governor's many vetoes, because something that has the requisite number of signatures, if the legislature chooses to address it, does not go to the voters. It does not go to the governor, but can be passed by the legislature, even though it would represent a minority of the people, the opinions of the people in our state. So that effort is called Secure Michigan Vote, or Secure MI Vote. It would tighten election laws, require photo IDs. It would prohibit unsolicited ballot applications, absentee ballot applications. It would limit how election funds are acquired and spent, and would generally follow what we've seen in states throughout the country who have decided to go that way. So if you're interested, we can put you in touch. Interfaith Action is a supporter of Promote the Vote 2022. My wife is involved with the League of Women Voters here and has the petitions and petition kits if you're so inclined to volunteer and collect signatures. And there's a great deal of effort. We've got until July 11 to get the requisite number of votes to get this on the ballot. And it's a lot of work. So lots of supporters behind Promote the Vote that you can see here. It's a good thing for us to be focused on. And then last, just so everybody kind of keeps in mind, I think those of you on this, you wouldn't be here if you weren't engaged, but there are lots and lots of important issues coming up in our state. For me personally, I'm very interested in how the state finances are being handled, and particularly income tax policy, the corporate tax rates, the child tax credit, which I think is crucially important for the families in our state, the earned income tax credit. All those things are high on the agenda, or at least the child credit tax and the earned income tax credit issues are very high on the agenda of the Whitmer administration. The Republicans would very much like to see cuts in the corporate income tax and an across the board cut in the income tax, rejecting proposals for a more graduated income tax and so on. Anyway, that's a really important issue for us to watch. Gun safety issues. There are efforts, another ballot petition is circulating now to try to get some modest, common sense gun safety proposals put into place. Driver's license for immigrants without legal status is something Interfaith Action has been helping with through Drive Michigan Forward. Voter protection I've mentioned. Again, school school funding issues, preschool funding, student mental health services, teacher supply, all those are very high on the agendas. Countering those are efforts to increase funding for religiously based schools and other proposals like that. And then another area where we have a great deal of interest is in inclusion of LGBTQ protections in hate crimes legislation, as well as local legislation elsewhere. These are just some of the key issues that we at Interfaith Action, I think, are looking at, trying to keep in front of mind. We ask everybody to give some thoughtful consideration to those. So with that, I promised Stephen I would do this in 45 minutes, and I think I'm just 2 minutes over. If there are more questions, I'd be happy to field those. Okay.
Gene, where do you see good news, or where do you see avenues of hope? Given the values that Interfaith Action kind of brings to the political space.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find those sometimes. It may be foolish, but I think in the wake of all the discussion surrounding the likely reversal of Roe versus Wade, that maybe people will finally get serious about the need to support families and to support children, and finally take this issue seriously, that it's not just, and I've criticized both sides on this issue. The choice people, it's not just about choice. I mean, there are other issues. Pregnancy is a problem, but there are lots of different solutions to it, and abortion is only one of them. On the pro-life side, it's not just an issue of life or not life. I mean, both sides have really powerful arguments, and we ought to just say, okay, however this comes out, okay, we understand what your arguments are, but let's deal with the problems that we can deal with. And my hope is, and I know this is probably never going to happen, but my hope is that people who have a willingness to work towards solutions will recognize things like the importance of getting money to poor people, getting money to mothers, getting money for child care, for family leave, and things like that. It just seems to me like such a powerful argument that both sides could meet on. So hope, that's my hope.
Well, thank you. Let me conclude by saying that Stephen and I will work to get the Michigan Redistricting Commission link on our website, so that folks can easily utilize that to find out what new district they will be in. And in conclusion, I would say that the faith traditions that inform Interfaith Action all have a somewhat of a prophetic legacy, and that prophetic legacy typically includes being a minority voice, but a voice that draws from faith traditions to advance justice, to advance peace, to advance well-being. So even though we may not be a prevailing majority voice, our faith traditions instruct us to be that prophetic voice. And so we hope to continue to do that. And thanks for all of you for joining us and for being that prophetic voice in the future. Gene, thanks again for the superb presentation.
Nice to see everybody. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.